everyone, and welcome once again to Health and Family. I'm Shay Burgess, your host. So let's have a candid conversation for the next 30 minutes. We're talking about driving in Bermuda. Is it working? Is there room for improvement? What prompted me to tackle this topic is an article I recently read in the daily newspaper where the writer was very concerned about the driving trends he was witnessing, and rightfully so. We have invited the author of that article, Mr. Al Seymour Sr., whom we'll meet later on in the program. But right now, we're very pleased that the Road Safety Council have agreed to come on Health and Family to discuss this issue with us. We welcome Ali Bardgett, chairperson of the Road Safety Council, and Roger Kendall, a member of the Road Safety Council. We welcome you both to Health and Family. So let me start with you, Ms. Bardgett. Give us a brief history of the Road Safety Council here in Bermuda.
Well, I believe the Road Safety Council was formulated in around 1990. The council members are appointed by the minister, and its role really is to advise on road safety legislation, plans, enforcement, anything and everything to do with road safety. I came to the Road Safety Council as the chairperson in January this year. Previously, the year before, I worked with the Bermuda Police Service as chair of the Community Action Group. So some of the initiatives that we started then, I brought over to this position with the Road Safety Council. Okay.
So talk to us, Mr. Kendall, yourself, about some of the statistics since the inception of the Road Safety Council here, because I know I hear, and I think I heard you once on the radio, giving some really sobering stats about what's happening on our roads and the effect that it has on the island.
Well, for decades we have had a winning position in a race that we don't want to win.
Right.
We have the worst statistics in the OECD countries for road collisions and fatalities. And the injury rate is phenomenal. For every one fatality, there are over 225 injuries. And the latest statistics, actually, I just got yesterday from Bermuda Hospital Board. From January this year to the end of February, 341 victims have visited the emergency department following a road traffic accident. That's kind of an average of almost 6 people a day.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
4 of those people were admitted to intensive care, to ICU. 28 victims were admitted to the acute care wing. This is in a 2-month period.
Yeah, I thought that's what you said.
Two people 18 or younger admitted to acute care.
Wow.
You know, the statistics
alarming to say the least.
They are alarming because we have 225 kilometres of paved roads with over 47,000 vehicles on the roads. So we have an issue.
Big issue.
I do believe that it stems from a lack of education initially. We have Project Ride, for example, where we have the 16 to 18-year-olds riding their 50cc bikes. It starts at 15 and a half. They go through to Project Ride. But all they do is ride around cones in the TCD car park.
So they're not actually having on the road
They have no
practice.
on-road training.
Oh, wow.
So they then go out onto the road. Now, that said, it's better than what they had when you were... well, not you personally, Roger, because you didn't ride bikes here, but you know, my husband, for example, always says it's better than we had. We had nothing. We just turned up with our birth certificate. So that is an improvement.
Got your license, really.
Right. It's an improvement, but
we have a ways to go.
We do. We need to have a full graduated licensing program, and the minister has tasked the Road Safety Council with developing that.
Okay. So let me go to you, Mr. Kendall. So we were talking a little bit about the road accidents, as Ms. Bardgett was talking about. So would you say that most of them are caused by young people, somewhere in the middle, or the elderly?
If we can clarify something from the beginning.
Okay.
We're using the terminology accident. 95% of the crashes on Bermuda's roads are not accidents. There's something at fault, and namely the rider and the driver.
Okay.
It should be termed as a collision and not an accident,
Okay.
because someone can be held accountable for their actions.
But
That's
is
the
that
first
happening?
clarification.
Is that happening?
No.
Okay, I didn't
We
think
have
so.
developed an attitude here where it's selfishness,
Mm-hmm.
me first. And you'll notice that particularly like at traffic lights,
Mm-hmm.
where you stop at the traffic lights and all the bikes overtake you and stand in front of you. You normally see those vehicles that have overtaken you stuck in traffic down the road. The complaints we're getting from the public are mainly dangerous driving and careless driving,
Yes.
travelling too close. If I'm adhering to the speed limit and holding back from your vehicle, look in my rear view mirror and there's a vehicle right on my exhaust pipe.
Yeah, I can't stand that.
If it's wet and I stop, there's no
Yeah.
chance that they have to avoid the collision.
Exactly. Yeah, and so that would you consider that to be some of the most common complaints? The driving too close to
Driving
you?
too close, well, inattention is the main cause of
Right.
most accidents, that collisions.
Okay.
There's so many instances where various factors can come into play: the road, weather, and traffic conditions.
Right.
And you've got to play all those things in mind when you are driving or riding.
And not to mention the distractions of the cell phone and the
Cell phone.
texting and I mean, and you know, we know it's illegal, but people are still doing it. And what can we do to stop that?
Well, one of the things that we've had complaints about from the emergency vehicles, fire, police, and ambulance, vehicles are not giving way to them. Back in the days we were talking about just now, windows were down, there was no air conditioning in cars. Nowadays the windows are up because there's air conditioning.
That's true.
They have the stereo, the radios, they even have earpieces. They can't hear.
Right.
They're not paying attention to their
You're
mirrors,
right.
so how can they give way?
Yeah, that's a good point. I never even thought about that. So what is a deterrent to this? What can we do? I mean, I know you're trying to educate us, and I do thank you for coming on the program. But what else can we do?
The film that's coming up?
Well, the start, really, the groundwork is to be laid, the concrete for me. And every other jurisdiction that has had a graduated licensing program has seen a significant reduction in fatalities and collisions within the first 5 years. We need to have that. We
Okay.
need to educate, have on-road training so that they're taught how to ride on the road at the regular speed, and they'll experience those scenarios during their training, rather than, you know, they go out on the road now with no on-road training.
Right.
They have no real conception of stopping distances, conditions of the road, for example, weather, sand on the road even. Anything can cause, you know, you to slide out. So the groundwork is the graduated licensing program.
So that would be
Enforcement
it.
and education
Okay.
go hand in hand.
Yeah. Enforcement is a great thing, but realistically, we can't expect a police officer to be on every single corner of Bermuda. That's not going to
Right.
happen.
Right.
And so that leaves us to be our own, to be accountable for our own actions. And so one of the reasons I wanted to do this program is to bring awareness to that, because as you said, the distractions, and I didn't even think about the air conditioning and the window and not listening. And yes, I do have my radio on, and I'm usually bopping along in my car. But what else can we do as far as making me accountable for driving? As far as, yes, I have the money to buy a car, but do I have enough sense to drive the car?
Right.
Or drive the bike or ride the
I think
bike?
it's threefold. One of the primary duties of the Road Safety Council is education.
Right.
If we can educate the people on what is responsible driving and riding, Project Ride's a good example.
Right.
There has to be enforcement,
Right.
which the police service is doing fairly well at the moment.
Yes.
But there has to be a deterrent. If
Right.
there's not a deterrent, prime example now is drinking and driving. Where's the deterrent for drinking and driving? We've been talking about roadside breath
Years.
tests. We've been talking about speed cameras. If there's not a deterrent, and if that deterrent is not followed through within the courts, then your attitude will not change.
Yeah.
So I think it's threefold: education, enforcement, and a deterrent. And the deterrent, I think, is the key factor.
Yeah. That speed camera, is that going to be coming along soon rather than later?
There's various ideas on this. Fixed speed cameras don't work.
Okay.
Because if you know there's a speed camera at the junction of Longford Road and Middle Road in
You're gonna
Warwick,
slow down,
you're going to slow down.
Right.
What they're talking about is perhaps down in the future introducing something which is used in other jurisdictions, which is time and distance between cameras.
So every
You've
so
seen-
often? Yeah.
So you know there's a camera down the road, you're going to slow down, and then you're going to speed up and you're going to slow down when you come to the next one. It's doing time and distance, And I think, again, that will be a good deterrent for people rather than knowing where the cameras are. It's a speed limit enforcement throughout the entire island.
The cameras are a deterrent.
Yeah, without a doubt.
That's absolutely, you know, what we need to have.
Another deterrent is, you know, when you see the lights going on and off, that's a little
Yes.
indication that there's a
Yeah.
policeman up the road.
Correct.
I mean, really, it's just, maybe we need more of those.
Well, the fixed penalties as well are
Unrealistic.
not haven't been changed for a very long time. So that's another area that we're working on to try to get revised. But we have lots of initiatives going on within the council, the main one being graduated licensing. But we also have just launched a campaign with a Piece of the Rock team.
Okay, talk to us
If,
about that.
if you don't know about it, the screenings have started. There's a social media campaign. Two filmmakers who are working here in Bermuda, amateur filmmakers, have done an amazing job with some of the film crew from Bermuda. They've been out with the emergency vehicle team, the EMTs, every weekend for the past 4 or 5 months. If you look on their Facebook page, you'll see all of the times and dates for the screenings. You can go as well to ptix.bm.
Okay.
The tickets are free.
Okay.
And last night we had the first Twitter chat. I think it's called Tweet Chat. I don't know, but that was really good. It gives a good indication of what the general public are asking.
All right, so unfortunately, time has just flown by. We're coming to the end of our interview, so give us some final words about what we can do to really assist the driving and the riding for the safety of everyone, because we all use the roads, the joggers, the drivers, the bikers, you know, as much as it's a tranquil island, but we have to come to realization that we're all using it, and that's where I think we're faulting. We're not getting that.
Education's got to be the key. The education in learning how to drive and how to ride correctly. The enforcement through the parents with younger children. We're talking about statistics.
Right.
If you compare apples to oranges, murders, grievous bodily harm, as opposed to road traffic fatalities, serious injury accidents, on the roadside it's far higher than it is for guns, gangs and violence.
For
and murder.
example, between 2008 and 2016, we had 102 road fatalities and 29 murders.
Okay. So if one wanted to book Road Safety Council to come speak to
Yes.
an organization, give us that information, and then unfortunately we're going to have to say goodbye.
Yes, you can call the Road Safety Council, the Road Safety Officer, on 247 1076.
1076. And is there an email?
There is, but I don't have it to hand at the moment.
We'll get it later.
And also Bermuda Police Service, Inspector Cardwell, has some great footage from what they gather out there on the roads.
Okay. Well, we want to thank both of you for coming, Mr. Kendall, who is a member of the Road Safety Council, and you, Ms. Bardgett, who is the chairperson of the Road Safety Council. We thank you for partaking in this important topic, and we hope to see you again real soon.
Thank you.
Thanks again. I'm Shay Burgess, and this has been Health and Family.
Move more, Bermuda. For health.
For you.
Move more, Bermuda.
And we welcome you back, everyone. Mr. Al Seymour Sr. is joining us to continue the discussion on driving in Bermuda, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Prior to us meeting Mr. Seymour, with his permission, I would like to read for you the first paragraph from the article entitled Reckless Speeding and Overtaking Should Concern Every Bermudian. If there was some way of recording every close call on our roads through reckless and aggressive attitudes by some drivers and riders, statistics each day would probably be so high one would think we are talking about a larger country. The truth is that there appears to be a culture which has been brewing for years by some who take our narrow, winding roads without regard for basic traffic rules that are designed to promote safety for all. And with that introduction, we welcome you, Mr. Al Seymour, to Health and Family.
Nice to be here.
So, and we should add that our executive producer also has your name, Al Seymour.
Yeah, how did he get that out?
I don't know, but this is Al Seymour's dad.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, give us a little background to yourself, because I know you've had a varied career over the years.
Well, you might say it all started in the late 40s and early 50s, listening to radio. And during that time, we used to pick up overseas stations in the evening. And there was one voice I heard. It was of Ed Morrow. He used to do the radio newscasts for CBS in the evening.
Right.
And he had such an authoritative, crisp delivery that I just simply said to myself, that's something I want to do.
Okay.
And so I said, well, in order to do that, I'd have to do a lot of changes and practicing and so forth. So I put a program in for myself where I read an article aloud every day for an entire year,
Right.
even the cotton-edge days. And never thinking that I would actually, make it, but I just felt like I'd like to give it a try. But fate intervened,
Yes.
and Montague Shepard started ZFB Radio.
Right.
And through a friend, he found out that I was interested in announcing, and I was teaching at the time,
Right.
teaching at boys' school at Prospect. He came to the school, and we had a brief conversation, and within seconds, he said, the job is yours, even though the station hadn't even started. So the rest is history, a little bit of radio, television, newspaper. It all became a part of my life.
Okay, sounds great. That's actually similar to what I do.
Wow.
I actually started off doing what you did, reading articles and seeing how I sounded.
Yeah.
So this article really prompted me to do this program. What was your motivation for writing it? I know there's some hazardous conditions and so forth, but just from your own mouth, what really was it that just said, look, I need to write about this?
Well, a couple of things. Just even driving here today.
Yeah.
The roads have become a kind of adventure to get through, and it shouldn't be that way.
I agree with you.
And also, I didn't mention that I worked in the mortuary field for about 7 years prior to, the other things.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And saw firsthand some of the results of impacts before we even had safety helmets. And I also thought about the changing pattern in our culture for moving about in our vehicles, and that it was getting more and more dangerous, but I think it runs much deeper than just understanding rules.
Right.
I think a lot has happened with the moods and mindset of people and getting into these vehicles. I don't have the answer for how do you get around that, but you're getting people jumping on cycles
Right.
or getting into cars with safety not even on the minds. It's just a question of I'm going to go this place and that place, and I hope that I get there and that sort of thing. And
I don't even think they hope. They're
well,
going to get there regardless, right?
And I think that it raises questions about whether or not our legislation for punishment for people who violate these rules is severe enough to really make people think twice or not. So, it's and I remember reading once about an airline pilot who said that you would think that flying up there is quite something, but he said his greatest fear was leaving home and getting to the airport. Because
that's deep.
you see, on the in the road, he was saying that when you're driving, you're alone. That's you and the next guy, the next person, and you don't know who's approaching you, whether he's had something influence, but affecting his mind or not, or what's going to happen.
So many factors, yes. Mhm.
Yeah.
So what are some of the trends that you've been noticing? Because you've been driving for quite a while.
Yeah.
as of late? What are some of the trends that you've been noticing? I know in my instance it's the overtaking, because I do actually stick to the speed limit. I think I'm one of the three or four people that actually.
I'm glad you mentioned that because just last week I was driving along the Botanical Garden stretch, and I was doing my usual, compliance with the speed limit. And I heard this engine roar behind me, and in a split second, it just overtook me. And I just said another, but before I can finish the sentence, I heard the police motorcycle start, which was on the side. And within seconds, they had the person. But,
Good.
It wasn't that anyone should glorify in someone getting
No,
caught.
but sometimes you
the bottom
wonder.
line is that is there a need for you to overtake? I mean, there are times when there's a grave emergency and that's a little risk involved, but that doesn't happen every day. And you got children out there, you get all sorts. The roads are just the same. The roads are narrow. They've been narrow for ever since.
And I think that's the beauty of Bermuda.
yeah,
I mean,
that
I've been
is,
in
yeah.
other jurisdictions
Yeah.
where the roads are narrow, and you have to share the road with
Yeah.
with the trams, not the trams, the prams, and people jogging and whatnot. And for the most part, they do adhere to the speeding limit. But for some reason here in BDA, I don't know what's going on. It's just like, I don't really care. I've got to go where I'm going, and that's it.
Eventually, I suppose somewhere way down the road, they'll have cameras that can record at different junctions and so forth, and license plate and all that sort of thing. Because that, for instance, let's take the Bardgett traffic lights.
Yes.
Almost every time, every morning in the race of it, I'm getting the thick of it all the time, but you'll see motorcycles going on the right side of the road in the path of the vehicles that are going to be coming in the opposite direction. And they get away with this because, well, the police do a terrific job, I think, in trying to get a handle on all of this, but you can't be everywhere. And the moment the light switches, you get the people on the right scrambling to get out of the way of the people coming. And it's only going to be a matter of time before something occurs there too. And we've just got to get more sensitized, I think, about safety and what it really means. But then you can't rule out alcoholic influence.
That's true too.
You can't rule out illegal drugs. You don't know who's doing what. And you can't leave out sometimes medical issues.
That's true.
All of these things come into play. So there's no one factor involved here. It's a combination of things,
So why do you think people are speeding? I mean, as we've mentioned that the roads are narrow, and realistically, if you're going to go at a high speed, inevitably, because of the curves, bang.
Yeah.
I don't understand
but I
why.
think the other thing is that the pace of life has
Yeah,
changed.
that's true.
And you get, for instance, I still see people, I thought it was illegal to be holding a phone
It
to
is
you
illegal.
while you're driving,
It
but I
is.
still see it.
I
In
do
fact, I
too,
saw a
yeah.
case of it yesterday.
I do.
And so there are these conflicting thoughts of trying to get ahead of the next person, rushing, and there's this rush thing. Everything is information, Facebook, tweet, and everything is at such a pace that I think it sort of filters into sometimes the makeup, and also that I don't think people within families and talk about this, so that someone somewhere could say, well, I better just take it a little better. I better think. The conversation's not there, I don't think, to any great degree.
So unfortunately, our interview is almost over, so I did want to ask you a couple more questions. Do you think there should be a cutoff age for driving in BDA?
I think that there's some merit to that, but you have to be a little bit careful there too, because I'll give you one short story. If you got a few seconds.
About a minute. Go
About a
ahead.
minute. Okay,
Yeah.
quickly. I was having lunch with my wife, and I had a lunch with the gentleman, and he drove his car from the east end of the island to where we were in the central parish. His next birthday, he'll be 101.
Wow.
And he was as fit as a fiddle.
Right.
That's not the usual case.
Right.
So if each case is weighed out with its merit,
Right.
you can
Yeah, I
give thought to
understand,
that.
Yeah. It's just sometimes, this is a pet peeve of mine driving in Bermuda because, like you said, you started off saying it shouldn't be this way. For a tranquil island, it's just like, woo, and you just don't want to drive sometimes, so I'm very
Well, I'll
fortunate.
tell you, it is a test every time.
It really is a test. So anyway, you were, back in the day, responsible for a cartoon called The Blue Manta. Am I correct in saying
That's
it?
correct, Manta, yeah.
All right, so actually your son told me about this. We're going to watch that right now, and then we're going to conclude our interview.
Okay, that's
All
fine.
right.
Okay, now.
Do not be afraid. You are in no danger.
What's happening? Who are you? Where are we?
I am the Blue Manta. Follow me. There's something I would like to show you.
Darren and Jason are led into a chamber with multicolored lights and a huge screen.
Have a look at the screen.
It can't be. That's back racing.
Take note. The engine boy has been abandoned by those he would claim are his friends. I've seen this before. Such a waste of energy. It's also too dangerous to continue. You two can help me with a plan.
This has got to be some kind of foolish dream.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. War, poverty, disease, those are real problems. Cycle pack racing in tiny Bermuda? I don't get it.
We would like to help. But what can we do?
Tomorrow morning, you will return to Bermuda. Tell others of this encounter. I will make an appearance in your city the day after tomorrow.
And we thank you for watching that clip. You were responsible for that. I know you voiced it.
My son was the producer and director, and he almost sent me to the white coats coming to collect me. But he did a great job. And the thing about it, the Blue Manta was actually based on cycle racing and so forth. And
Yeah,
all. And
that
so
was
that's,
very prevalent back in the day.
yeah,
But it's
yeah.
still,
Yeah.
I've seen a little bit of it, but not as much. But I do remember in my 20s.
He did a great job of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, well, I thank you so much. You're a pleasure.
It's a
And-
pleasure being with you, and I hope that somewhere along the line somebody picks up something.
Okay. All right. Well, we've come to the end of this edition of Health and Family, but I hope not the end of the conversation of driving here in Bermuda. Without a doubt, the distractions we come across will continue, but we as drivers on our roads must be diligent and attentive so that driving can return to what it was intended to be, a pleasure, not a displeasure. In the words of my mentors in radio, the late great Lee Harvey and Wayne Lottymore, please use care, caution, and courtesy on our roads. I'm Shay Burgess, and this has been Health and Family.